How's it going, everyone? My name is Ian, and today I am at Rome's Fiumicino International Airport in Lazio, Italy. From here, I will be taking a roughly hour-long flight to Split International Airport in Croatia. At the moment, I'm checking in for today's flight aboard one of Vueling's somewhat new A320neo aircraft. Rome's Fiumicino Airport is a very busy one, as you can see. It also happens to have the perfect windows for plane spotting, which you know I did plenty of. I really like ITA's new blue livery since it's my favorite color and it glimmers perfectly for a picture. Funny enough, in all of the times I've been to Europe, this is my very first time that I got a Ryanair aircraft on camera. Even though it's like Southwest back home, it's not something you'll see in the United States. Anyways, let's make our way to our gate, A64. There it is, our aircraft for today. This specific Vueling A320neo registered Alpha Charlie November Foxtrot Hotel joined the Spanish low-cost carrier's fleet back in 2019, and has since been painted in a special livery that I can't pronounce. After an hour of standing up and waiting inside the jet bridge, to this day I still don't know why, with the other passengers, we finally were able to board. My seat today is 15 Foxtrot, which is a window seat overlooking the right wing. Seeing that we're already a little behind schedule once everyone is aboard, we immediately begin our pushback. Once we're done with that, I can see our tug moving on to its next call. And after some checks, we begin our taxi to the runway. Holding short to let us take off was an Air Canada 787, which is also something you don't see much of in the US. With that, here's our departure out of Rome's Fiumicino Airport, runway 25.
Securely fastened until the seatbelt sign has been switched off. We recommend you keep your seatbelt fastened whenever you are seated. When the seatbelt sign is switched off, you may use larger electronic devices. Please be careful when opening the overhead lockers.
Vi preghiamo di rimanere seduti con la cintura di sicurezza allacciata fino a quando l'apposito segnale venga spento. Vi consigliamo di mantenere le cinture di sicurezza allacciate quando siete seduti. I dispositivi elettronici di maggiori dimensioni potranno essere utilizzati dopo che il segnale delle cinture si sarà spento. Vi invitiamo a fare attenzione durante l'apertura delle cappelliere.
I always love the sound of jet engine thrust, and seeing the flaps retract is a definite bonus of my seat. With a couple of hard left banks, the pilots align the aircraft with our eastbound flight path. Time for a seat review. The somewhat dirty tray table can be deployed by turning the arm that locks it upward, and can be extended to fit over your lap. Enjoy me struggling to lock it back into place. In the seat back pocket was the safety card, and an in-flight magazine, which doubled as a menu for in-flight meal and beverage services. Speaking of which, I got the tapas deli box and my usual Coca-Cola. Inside the box was 2 types of meat, which I believe were pork and beef, along with some crackers. The meat, to my surprise, was moldy or rotten, one of the two. Seeing that, I immediately sent it back. My mom, who was sitting next to me, felt bad, so she saved me some of what I believe was some form of beef pie, which is what she ordered. It was pretty good. Now, I think it's easy to say that you're getting as disappointed as I was with Vueling, but simple mistakes such as that do happen, and when I pointed it out to the polite flight attendant, he apologized for the inconvenience and happily offered me another option from the menu. I had to reject the offer, however, considering I wasn't that hungry anymore, and by this point we've already begun our descent into Croatian airspace. Just after that, we finished our journey over the beautiful Adriatic Sea, and the islands of Dalmatia Split came into view. You may think we're aligning to the runway of which we'll land on right now, but you'd be mistaken. You see, every time an aircraft takes off or lands, they point their nose, or the front of the plane, against the wind. What this means is that when an aircraft, for example, lands at Split as the winds blow in from the Adriatic Sea, the aircraft will land on the easternmost side of the runway in order to combat with the winds coming in from the west. Because of the mountains that surround the city of Split, every aircraft landing on the eastern side of the runway must take a steep 180-degree turn in order to align to the runway, which calls for a hard bank to the right, all while only hundreds of feet above sea level. Even though the approach pattern for Split today does seem tight, the farmland and overall fields surrounding the airport put it a good distance away from the towering mountains. With that, here's our arrival into Split Zračna Luka, runway 23.
receive calls and use the data services on your mobile phone and handheld electronic devices. Larger electronic devices must remain switched off and stowed. Please be careful when opening the overhead lockers and make sure you take all your belongings with you as you leave the aircraft. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on board with us today, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon. We wish you a safe onward journey, and thank you for choosing Vueling.
Vi preghiamo di restare seduti con la cintura di sicurezza allacciata fino a quando l'aereo non si sarà completamente fermato.
After that perfectly buttered landing, we deplaned the aircraft and made our way down the air stairs, where we were welcomed with the warmth of the Dalmatian sun and a cool breeze. So now, my final opinion for this flight. Although it did have its negatives, such as the food being moldy, or whatever that was, it was still operated by an amazing crew and an obviously skilled pilot and first officer. In all seriousness, being the av geek that I am, I don't usually dislike an airline for simple disputes such as issues with the food, as long as the situation is handled correctly by the staff, which in this case, it was. And things like the dirty tray table I couldn't care less about, considering it's a low-cost airline and in the end, you get what you pay for. So overall, I had a near perfect experience on board Vueling's A320neo today, and I'd be happy to fly them again. Also, if anyone finds out what livery this is, be sure to comment it down below. Other than that, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching, and until our next journey, fly safe.